what you can't explain. It's coming back again. I can see it now, I can see it now. What you can't explain, coming back again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. Today's video is going to be a little bit shorter. It's a new case. It's been highly requested. People have been messaging me on Instagram and TikTok and even emailing me asking me to talk about this case, but it is evolving. More information is going to come out, but I want to give you the basic details and what we know so far. They say a mother will do anything to protect her children. And on a quiet summer day in Devil's Den State Park, Kristen Brinks proved that with her life. What began as a peaceful hike through the woods with her husband and two young daughters ended in bloodshed. And in the middle of the forest, far from the safety of their new home, a nightmare unfolded that left two little girls orphaned, and the world asking why. 43-year-old Clinton Brinks and his wife, 41-year-old Kristen Brinks, had just uprooted their lives, moving across the country to start fresh in a quiet Arkansas town, hoping to be closer to family and to give their girls a better life. They were compassionate nurses, devoted parents, and beloved friends. They were the kind of people who fed you when you were hungry, watched your child when you needed help, and greeted life with open hearts and open hands. They weren't the kind of people you'd expect to be targeted by violence, especially violence committed by a complete stranger. But on July 26, 2025, in the middle of a sunny day while hiking with their daughters through the scenic trails of Devil's Den State Park, Clinton and Kristen were brutally murdered. What we know now is horrifying. Clinton was attacked first, stabbed without warning. Kristen managed to get her daughters to safety, and then she ran back. Not away. She ran back to her husband to try and save him. And that's when the killer turned on her. Their daughters, just 7 and 9 years old, were found alone in the woods, alone, traumatized, but alive, because their mother had made sure of it. Both of their parents had made sure of it. Their bravery and quick thinking would help law enforcement track down a suspect, but the question remains, why did this happen? The man accused of killing Clinton and Kristen is 28-year-old Andrew McGann, and as far as we can tell, he didn't even know the Brinks. He was a former elementary school teacher with a history that was raising red flags years before he took the lives of two innocent people and stole loving parents from their children. We're going to get into all of this, but first, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN. So before we dive deeper into this case, I want to take a second to talk about something that's become a non-negotiable for me, especially after researching the dark side of the internet as often as I do. Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN, which, if you haven't heard of it yet, and you probably have because Surfshark's been a sponsor on this channel for a long time and I've been using it for years. Surfshark VPN is basically like a digital invisibility cloak for everything you do online. You know how in these true crime cases, the bad guys are always lurking where you least expect them. Well, a lot of the time, they are using the internet to find their victims through unsecured public Wi-Fi, data breaches, location tracking, and the scary part, most of us are walking around totally exposed without even realizing it. But with Surfshark, I've got encryption strong enough to make even the most tech-savvy creep cry. Not only does it hide your IP address and location, but it also protects your data on public Wi-Fi, like when you're at a hotel, coffee shop, or airport. And my favorite part is you can use it on unlimited devices. So I have it running on everything, my phone, laptop, tablet, even the smart TV, my kids' video game systems, my kids' tablets, my kids' phones, my mom's tablet phone, her computer, all with one subscription. And actually, this is very timely right now because just in the last few weeks, I've seen tons of stories and heard tons of accounts of how children playing video games online, Roblox, using chat rooms, things like that, how they have become the target of older men that are using these platforms to talk to these kids, find them, track their location, etc. It's very, very scary. So Surfshark VPN is not only going to protect you, but it's going to protect all the people that you love and care about in your life. And Surfshark also has this feature called Surfshark Alert, which tells you instantly if your email or passwords have been leaked, so you can shut it down before anyone else can access your stuff. Surfshark VPN can do so many things. The protection aspect of it is so important, but there's so many other great benefits. It's going to open up a wide range of entertainment from all over the world. It's going to allow you to avoid price gouging when you travel. So many things that Surfshark VPN can do for you, and right now you can get 4 extra months for free by going to surfshark.com/stephanieharlowe and using code stephanieharlowe at checkout. Once again, that's surfshark.com/stephanieharlowe, or just click the link right at the top of the video description. With a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 live support, there's literally no risk. Protect yourself, stay anonymous, because when it comes to the online world, being invisible is kind of the power move right now. Thank you so much to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. Devil's Den State Park doesn't just sound eerie, it feels eerie. Tucked into the rolling hills of northwest Arkansas, this 2,500-acre expanse of rugged terrain sits inside the Ozark National Forest, carved out by ancient geological forces and time itself. It's a place where sandstone crevices and shadowy caves hide beneath dense canopies, and trails snake through towering hardwoods that whisper when the wind picks up. The park is named for the Devil's Den, a dark, craggy crevice once used as a hideout during the Civil War, and still rumored today to be haunted by ghosts from the past. But despite the name, Devil's Den isn't known for evil or scary things. It's known for beauty, for peace, for the kind of wild, unfiltered stillness you can't find in city parks or manicured suburbs. Families come here to hike, to camp, to escape. And that's exactly what Clinton and Kristen Brinks were doing when they arrived with their 2 young daughters in July of 2025, when they traveled to the park, which was about a 30-minute drive from their new home. The couple were originally from Bakersfield, California, where Clinton attended Foothill High School, and Kristen was a student at Liberty High, where she was a standout volleyball player who would go on to be an All-American at California State University. We don't know much yet about their lives, but we do know that in 2018, the Brinks were living in Montana, where they played on a recreational volleyball team and were known to spend their summers at a local park where they would set up a volleyball net and encourage people to play with them. Danica Harrell, a nurse at a rehabilitation center in Montana, she said that Clinton and Kristen were selfless and unconditional when it came to love and support for their friends. And she remembered that during times when she struggled to find childcare, the couple allowed her daughter to stay with them without a thought. And Kristen would often bring Danica a plate of food when she would bring her daughter home. They had also lived for a time in Rapid City, South Dakota, where Clinton worked as a nurse aide and Kristen worked as a nurse at Monument Health. A coworker of the couple's said, quote, "What I saw on a day-to-day basis was the heartfelt compassion they each poured into every patient they cared for. This is what made it easy to like them and want to get to know more about them. They really were genuinely good-hearted people and had such a strong faith and deep love for each other." End quote. Friends and neighbors of the Brinks said that they had relocated to Prairie Grove, Arkansas to be closer to family just 2 weeks before their untimely and tragic deaths. According to the Prairie Grove mayor, David Falk, the water service at their new townhouse had been started on July 16th, and reportedly Clinton had been scheduled to start a job at Highland Dairy in Fayetteville after transferring from their parent company, Prairie Farms Dairy in South Dakota. And if that's confusing, because he worked for Prairie Farms Dairy in South Dakota, and then he moved to Arkansas and lived in a place called Prairie Farm, right? That can be a little confusing, but those two things are not related. But what's interesting is, according to Highland Dairy, for reasons unknown, Clinton had actually turned down the job offer on July 21st, which leads to the question of what was he going to do for work, or didn't they choose this specific location because of the potential that Clinton would have a job there? Now, this could be due to multiple things. It's possible that Clinton, who did have a background in the medical field, found a job that was better suited for him and his skills. He no longer had a need for the Highland Dairy job. That hasn't come out yet. We don't know. What we do know, though, is that just a few weeks into their fresh start in Arkansas, the Brinks laced up their hiking boots, packed their water bottles and snacks, and set out for a day in nature with their two daughters, ages 7 and 9, probably expecting to make memories they would talk about for years. Instead, they walked into a nightmare. The trail they chose, like many in the park, winds past moss-covered boulders, crosses creeks that disappear underground, and loops around old stone structures built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s. It's a trail meant for a quiet reflection, for teaching kids how to spot butterflies or frogs, or for holding hands and stealing a private moment with someone you love. But on that day, somewhere deep in the woods, that serenity was shattered in an explosion of chaos and violence, the kind that no one could have predicted. The attack would not only devastate a family and shake a community, it would stain the image of Devil's Den itself. For decades, the park had been a destination for school field trips, weekend warriors, and lovers of Arkansas's natural beauty, but now it's always going to be remembered for something else. For the moment when the peace of the forest was pierced by screams, when a beautiful day turned brutal, and when two innocent lives were stolen under the open sky for seemingly no reason. On Saturday, July 26th, at around 2:30 p.m., the Washington County Police received a call from a hiker who told them that they'd found two little girls on a trail in Devil's Den State Park. The hiker informed dispatch that they had gotten the girls off the trail and to safety, and then they hiked back to find the little girl's parents, which is when the hikers discovered a bloody scene and the bodies of Clinton and Kristen Brink, who had both been stabbed to death. Due to a lack of cellular service in that area of the park, the hiker had to continue on before being able to call the police, at which point Arkansas State Police investigators were dispatched to the scene.
What's the location in the state park that we need to be responding to?
Medic 4 and Strickler. Washington County received a call from the visitor center. Two children are there. They advised that their parents were assaulted. One was possibly stabbed. The parents are missing.
Trail, icebox, hiking down, and for help.
Read that. Say again. Repeat.
Here, yell, calling for help. We're hiking down.
Try to relay to the office that we found the victims down here. They're on the lower Devil's Den Trail. Just a couple minutes. I think I see you right there. I've got two bodies down here.
Law enforcement spoke to people who were at the park that day to see if anyone had noticed anything suspicious or out of the ordinary. One individual reported seeing a white male emerging from the trail with what looked like blood on his face before getting into a dark-colored sedan and driving away from the park on Highway 170. The person of interest was described as wearing a long-sleeved shirt with the sleeves rolled up, dark pants, a dark baseball cap, sunglasses, and fingerless gloves, and he was carrying a large black backpack or duffel bag. Additionally, it was reported that the license plate of the vehicle he was driving had been covered by black tape. So obviously that's suspicious right off the bat. Now, attempting to locate this man in the vehicle that he was driving, authorities appealed to the public. They asked residents and park goers to help with their investigation by looking through their phones for photos or videos that might have captured something. In response, the public came out in droves. They provided law enforcement with approximately 500 images and video, which included cell phone footage, along with home and business security videos. Now, Arkansas State Police Director Mike Hagar would later say, quote, "We had a pretty good description of our suspect. We did our initial release and other witnesses came forward who were on the trail during the time the murders occurred. They didn't see the murders, but they provided video footage and photographs. From that, the investigators interviewed witnesses and were able to compile a composite sketch of what the investigators believed the suspect looked like," end quote. In the days after the attack on Clinton and Kristen Brink, law enforcement released that composite sketch along with a photo of the male person of interest from behind. And the public was ready and willing to help in any way that they could, but they were also understandably concerned knowing that a person who was capable of committing such a brutal and violent act was out there running free, had not been apprehended yet, right? There's a manhunt going on.
Law enforcement has released a composite sketch and a photo of the person of interest in this case. According to police reports, the man in question was seen leaving the area in a black four-door sedan, with its license plate obscured by tape, leaving one of the park's 2 exits.
He couldn't have driven maybe 10, 15 miles with that on. It would raise suspicion for law enforcement or even a passerby who had the knowledge to say, wait a second, this gentleman's covering his plate. But at some point, he had to probably pull over, service station of some sort of business, cover his license plate to gain access to this park.
A minimal suspect description and victim identification essentially covers the information released by Arkansas State Police in the 5 days since the killings. Many people want to know why troopers haven't said more.
It makes me lose hope because, it's Devil's Den, there's no cameras, no service. It's very easy for someone to just come and go out of there. Just hoping that they maybe have information that we don't know about.
Another concern for many local residents is public safety. Chief Goggins describes this incident as an act of, quote, random violence.
That's what appears to be random. Violence is atypical. And I think that's why it really kind of rattles us and shakes us.
There may have been limited service and no cameras in the park, but residents and businesses along the routes in and out of the park delivered their surveillance footage to the police. And from there, law enforcement looked closely at, they said, roughly 10 videos of cars that matched the description of the suspect's vehicle, and this led them to identify the suspect's sedan as a Kia Stinger. Major Stacy Rhodes with the Arkansas State Police said, quote, "We used that information to vet various owners, and our suspect was identified," end quote. On Wednesday, July 30th, after a 5-day manhunt, 28-year-old Andrew McGann was apprehended in Springdale, Arkansas. This is about 30 miles north of Devil's Den Park. And the series of events that led to his apprehension is just so bizarre. It's almost hard to believe that this part of the case isn't a scene from a dark satirical movie, but it is real. So just days after brutally stabbing 2 parents to death in the woods, as a highly publicized manhunt was actively going on for him, Andrew McGann walked into a family-owned hair salon in Springdale like he had nothing to hide, like he hadn't just committed one of the most horrifying crimes the region had seen in decades. He wasn't frantic, he wasn't on the run, he hadn't left the town, the state, nothing. He wasn't hiding in the shadows, he was getting a haircut, and the woman cutting his hair, well, she knew, not who he was, not at first, but she felt something. Adriana Guadalupe Ruiz Avalos, a hairstylist at Lupita's salon, she says she got a weird vibe from McGann the moment he walked in. Something about him was off. The way he kept his head down, avoided conversations, the tension in his body. He was dressed in baggy khakis and just wanted a high fade. She sat him down, started cutting his hair, kept cutting his hair, but she was paying attention.
As soon as I saw him, something fell off about him. He looked pretty scary. He didn't look like he was okay. He was very timid. He was always with his head down, long hair covering his face.
So take a look at this. This is new video into our newsroom of McGann walking into a Springdale beauty salon and barber shop where he was arrested. You can see him talking to the hairstylist.
5 minutes into the haircut, a police officer walked inside the salon and inquired about the black Kia Stinger parked outside, asking who it belonged to. Andrew McGann identified himself as the owner and gave police permission to look inside the vehicle. The police officer who initially walked in had noticed that McGann had cuts on his hands, and inside the car, law enforcement saw a substance that looked like blood. The Kia was seized and transported to state police headquarters, and initial DNA tests confirmed that the substance in the car was blood, and it was a match to the blood found at the crime scene in Devil's Den State Park.
And here's video of police arresting McGann in that salon, still wearing the barber's cape. He was arrested around 5 o'clock yesterday.
The stylist, Ariana, she said that she watches a lot of true crime documentaries, and she made sure that she kept clippings of McGann's hair from the floor of the salon in case law enforcement would later need them for evidence or DNA. And here's the oddest part. According to Major Stacy Rhodes with the Arkansas State Police, the authorities don't believe Andrew McGann was getting his hair cut to conceal or change his identity. She said, quote, "You could chalk that up to school starts next week," end quote. So why would Andrew McGann be concerned with having a fresh fade before the school year began? Because he was a teacher. McGann held active teaching licenses in Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma, and he'd been hired at Springdale Public Schools for the upcoming year. According to the school district, since school was not yet in session, McGann hadn't had any contact with the students or their parents, but that was not the case for previous schools where this man had worked and taught children. Okay, here's the timeline. Andrew McGann appears to have grown up in the Chicago area, where he at one point lived in the Garfield Ridge neighborhood with his family. He attended Fenwick High School in Oak Park, Illinois, where he played on the football team before graduating in 2015. He then attended Oklahoma State University in Tulsa, and he graduated from that college in May of 2022 with a Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education. On May 7th, 2022, he obtained an Oklahoma teaching certificate, and it looks like after that, he got a job pretty quickly and easily. During the 2022-2023 academic year, McGann taught the 4th grade at Donald Elementary School in Flower Mound, Texas, part of the Louisville Independent School District. Sierra Markham, whose son was a student in McGann's classroom, described the teacher as the most standoffish teacher she had ever met, saying, quote, "He was pretty cold. You could ask him a question, and he would give you a one-word response. Overall, just pretty disinterested in his students," end quote. Well, Andrew McGann may have seemed disinterested because Markham had a son in his class, but there are multiple reports that McGann was much warmer and much more interested in his girl students. Lindsay Poliak, whose son attended the school while McGann was a teacher there, posted information she had about him on Facebook after his arrest was announced, and she wrote, quote, "This sick individual taught 4th grade at Sawyer School when he was in the 4th grade. He was occasionally in the guy's class on Fridays. S told me during the year that McGann gave candy away and brought Sonic drinks to class, but only for girls, and I thought that was super bizarre. Then he heard from other kids that Andrew McGann hosted lunchtime in his classroom for special girls. He also mentioned how often McGann played tag with the girls during recess. I saw the guy at school on multiple occasions and wondered why a single man in his early 20s was interested in teaching young kids. He seemed charismatic and was usually surrounded by kids, especially little girls. Other parents and teachers commented how much the kids liked him, and I heard moms talk about how hot he was. By May of 2023, parents of girls affected had been going to the school and district with allegations of him tickling and asking girls to sit on his lap, giving treats and praising their looks. By the end of the school year, McGann was placed on administrative leave for inappropriate classroom behavior and favoritism and was allowed to resign from LISD. He was not fired. He subsequently, allegedly, went on to 2 other schools in Oklahoma and was about to start teaching at an Arkansas elementary school before he brutally murdered these parents at the state park in front of their young daughters. My questions are, did McGann exhibit the same grooming behaviors in Oklahoma? Did the behavior escalate? Why is it so difficult for school districts to terminate the employment of teachers exhibiting inappropriate behaviors? End quote. So apparently, some of the students who were around McGann witnessed him paying extra special attention to his very young female students. There were accounts of McGann pulling a young girl into his lap and telling her that he wished he could date her and he wished she could be his girlfriend, and he was known for giving the girl students special treatments. Like you heard in the Facebook post, he would bring them candy or Sonic drinks, he would play tag with them, tickle them, just very odd behavior, especially because these treats and extra attention was never given to the boy students. So if it was kind of just an overall, I'm a teacher and I like to bring Sonic drinks to school and bring candy to school for my students, okay, that would be a great teacher. I would love that teacher. But if it's just the girls, and on top of that, he's kind of getting touchy with them, playing tag with them, tickling them, pulling them into his lap, I don't think that it's a hot take to say that's odd behavior. And even if you're not doing anything nefarious, as a male teacher, you should not be doing that with female students simply because of how it would look. Now, according to another parent of a Donald Elementary student, many parents reported McGann's behavior to school staff and to Louisville ISD, but, quote, everything just kind of got swept under the rug, end quote. The school district then sent a letter out to parents in 2023 informing them that Andrew McGann had been placed on administrative leave following concerns related to classroom management, professional judgment, and student favoritism. The letter continued to say, quote, while our investigation did not find any evidence of inappropriate behavior with the student, we did find his classroom management and professional judgment to be below our district's expectations, end quote. Was Andrew McGann fired? Were the police called in to investigate allegations made by these many students and parents? No. He was given the option to instead resign immediately and quietly, which he did. Now, Lindsay Poliak has pointed out that if Andrew McGann had been terminated by that school district, this would have been on his record and it would have raised red flags for the next districts he went to. But that is not what happened, and McGann went on to teach at another school during the 2023-2024 school year. This was Spring Creek Elementary in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and he was hired to teach the 5th grade. A woman whose son was in McGann's class talked to NBC News anonymously, fearing harassment and retaliation, and she said that Andrew McGann was pretty quiet, but all the kids seemed to love him. Her own son looked up to and admired McGann so much he started wearing polo shirts to school because that was how his teacher dressed. So while at Spring Creek, McGann, who was apparently interested in the outdoors, wrestling, and hiking, he started a running club for the students. So this all sounds good. It sounds like there's no issues. The students all love him. They flock and want to be around him. I guess that's something you would want in a teacher. He's starting a running club, getting the kids active. Okay, this is good. And also, there were no reports of him doing anything wrong while at this school. But this mother did notice that McGann was often awkward around his students' parents, and he struggled to make eye contact during parent-teacher conferences, and he once joked that the reason he taught elementary school was because he was afraid of adults. So he seems to be very charismatic, comfortable, happy, just at home when he's around kids, but not so much around adults. The school district has reported that McGann voluntarily resigned at the end of the year to pursue employment elsewhere, which ended up being Northwoods Fine Arts Academy in the Tulsa suburb of Sand Springs, where he taught 5th grade for the 2024-2025 school year. Once again, this school said that McGann resigned his position at the end of the school year. He'd passed all background checks before being hired, and he'd never given them a reason to discipline him while he was employed there. So after this, Andrew McGann relocated to Arkansas, where he was hired to teach at a Springdale elementary school. Just before classes were to start, Andrew McGann stabbed Clinton and Kristen Brink to death. And then he went to go get a haircut so he could look presentable on his first day. And we should talk a little bit about this school stuff. I'm not saying, there's no proof, I should say, that Andrew McGann did anything wrong or illegal. There's just a lot of reports, and they all mirror each other of his odd and inappropriate behavior with little girls in his class. Does that mean he did anything? No. I'm of the idea and of the sort of mindset that we should remain unbiased about these things. Did he kill Kristen and Clinton Brink? Yes, he did. I know there hasn't been a trial yet, but he 100% did. Okay, so we already kind of can tell if you're, I guess, able and willing to stab 2 people to death, then you're probably not okay, right? You're not right. There's something wrong with you. So it's only sort of making those reports of his previous behavior with children seem more plausible, not because the crimes are the same, but because there could be a connection there. And do you know what that connection could be? Well, it could be the Brinks' 7- and 9-year-old daughters. We're going to talk about that in a little later. So after his arrest, law enforcement obtained a warrant to search McGann's home in Springdale, where they collected what they called items consistent with him being involved in the Devil's Den murders.
Arkansas State Police Special Agents have arrested James Andrew McGann, 28, of Springdale. He's been charged with 2 counts of capital murder in the deaths of Clinton David Brink and Kristen Amanda Brink. We were able to take a monster off the streets and bring relief to Clinton and Kristen's precious girls.
That was Colonel Mike Hagar, the head of the state police, and you could tell he's really shaken up and really emotional, especially when he's talking about Clinton and Kristen's 2 daughters. He would say that these 2 little girls had very much helped during the initial stages of the investigation, and he and his colleagues were in awe of them. Hagar stated, quote, "The information that they were able to provide to start us down this path, to be able to make this arrest, it all started with those 2 little girls. It's incredible," end quote. Those 2 girls are currently safe and in the care of family, but here's the thing, they may have witnessed, at least partially, the attack on their parents. Law enforcement believes that while the family was hiking, McGann attacked, starting with Clinton. So he first goes to Clinton, he starts stabbing him. While this attack was happening, Kristen was able to get their 2 daughters away into safety before she returned to the trail. She returned to the place of the attack to try and help her husband, at which point she was ambushed and also attacked. Now, where did Kristen bring the girls? It's not clear. The hikers said that they found the little girls on a trail, so as if they were in the woods. Some law enforcement statements said Kristen did not go back to the car with her girls, which kind of made it seem as if Kristen had brought the 2 girls back to the car and then returned to the trail. But I have to feel that if she'd done that, she would have called 911 or given her daughters the cell phone to call 911 because they would have been back into service by then. There's also information that the little girls ended up at the visitor center. What I believe happened is that Kristen probably got them far enough away in the woods, told them to stay there, to hide and wait, because the hikers aren't going to find these little girls until about an hour after the crime happened. So I have a feeling that the little girls probably hid in the woods, and then when they heard hikers coming or when they saw that these were safe people, and people that they could ask for help, they came out and asked for help. And then the hikers got them to the visitor center, and then the hikers went back out to look for the bodies of their parents. But we don't know exactly what happened there. It is likely that those 2 little girls were present to witness the attack on their father, which is devastating to think of. Also, because of the cuts that Andrew McGann sustained to his hands, police believe that Clinton and Kristen fought back, but they were unable to save themselves. And this happens a lot when somebody's going in with a knife and stabbing madly. They will often nick or stab themselves, especially if their victim is struggling, fighting, moving. It's very common, which is how we would find Andrew McGann's DNA at the crime scene and how there would also be blood in his vehicle, not just his victim's blood, but also probably his own. So it is believed that Clinton and Kristen fought back, but they were unable to save themselves. However, as the Brink family has stated, Clinton and Kristen were heroes who died protecting what was most important to them, their 2 daughters. Now, some people might ask, why did Kristen go back? Why didn't she call the police? Well, as we've already discussed, there is limited to no cell service in that area of the state park. And I wonder if McGann knew that. This was premeditated to an extent, right? He had to cover his license plate with black tape. He had to bring a book bag with a weapon in it. And yeah, if it's premeditated and he's doing all of these things, picking the spot as Devil's Den State Park, I'm sure he went to an area where he knew there just wouldn't be as many people there and would be limited cell service. Additionally, we do know that Kristen Brink was a nurse. Maybe she thought the attacker had been scared off after she'd gotten away and ran. Maybe she thought that the attacker would think she was calling the police, so he'd ran away. Maybe she was hoping that she could give her husband first aid and life-saving care until they could get to a place where they could call the police and get an ambulance there. Maybe she didn't care whether or not the attacker was still there. She just refused to abandon her husband, and she wanted to do whatever she could to try and intervene and save him. But here's the thing. The authorities are saying they have no reason to believe that Andrew McGann knew Clinton or Kristen Brink. And although they are exploring possible motives, there just doesn't seem to be one. Major Stacy Rhodes with the Arkansas State Police, she said, quote, "In my 27 years that I've been with the state police, this is probably one of the most heinous crimes that we've had, especially the aspect of just how random it was," end quote. Andrew McGann has been charged with 2 counts of capital murder, and during his first court appearance the day after his arrest, he was ordered to be held without bond and assigned a public defender. Now, his arraignment was initially scheduled for August 25th, but then Judge Joanna Taylor signed an order to move it to August 14th. And we never see this, right? We always see these court proceedings taking forever. And when crimes happen, it's like, oh, their first court date isn't for 3 months. It's just ridiculous how slow the wheels of the justice system can move sometimes, most of the time, all of the time. But in this situation, we might be looking at different circumstances. At the press conference, law enforcement said that McGann had made what they considered to be an admission, essentially admitting to having been the one who committed the crime. When a suspect makes a statement implicating themselves and there is strong physical evidence like DNA in his vehicle, items found in his home, they found knives, a bunch of knives in his home, by the way, which is normal, right? Because we all have like knives in our home for cooking and things, but they said they found a bunch of knives and they were going to send them to the lab for testing to see if any of those knives were the murder weapon. And he also had cuts on his hand. So the prosecutors will often want to move more quickly to formally file charges and start pretrial proceedings. Additionally, the local prosecutor, Brandon Carter, has already stated that the state plans to give the jury the option to sentence Andrew McGann to death. There's 23 people on death row in Arkansas, and the last person who was executed in the state of Arkansas was Kenneth Williams on April 27th, 2017. So really not that long ago. It seems that they do have kind of like an active capital punishment system there. So not the state you want to commit a crime like this in, probably, but that is what he did. So in death penalty cases, there's often tighter procedural timelines and a desire to start the formal process earlier so both sides can begin preparing for what will likely be a very long and complex legal battle, because when someone's life is on the line, even though this is someone who already took 2 lives, when someone's life is on the line, the court process, the trial, the jury, the lawyers, the judge, everything is just way more important and way more kind of intense. And it's at a different rate because, you know, if this person's found guilty, he could be sentenced to death. But the real question would be, why did Andrew McGann do this? He doesn't seem to have a prior criminal record. Besides a really bad dating profile picture, a really bad one. I'll put it up here if I can find it again, but I did find it when I was going through this and I was like, oh, I don't know. He looks so scary in this picture. I don't know why he thought like this is the one. This is the one that's going to get those ladies to drop their panties. I am so fierce and fine in this picture. He looks like a murderer in this dating profile picture, but yeah, there's nothing in his background that would suggest he was a violent murderer. And if he didn't even know his victims, then why? One theory is that the real target for Andrew McGann was the Brinks' 2 young daughters, 7 and 9 years old, right around the age of the elementary school girls that he seemed to pay such special attention to while he was a teacher. A chilling but plausible theory is that he saw an opportunity, right? Crime of opportunity. 2 young girls in the woods, relatively isolated, no cell service, no other people around. He may have even been watching them. It's possible that maybe McGann saw the little girls before he saw their parents. And when Clinton or Kristen noticed and attempted to intervene, that's when he attacked. And I would also like to say that as far as we know, McGann never committed a crime like this before, as far as we know. But we don't know that for sure. We don't. There could be a string of bodies out there, unsolved, unknown, that could be attributed to him. We don't know anything about this guy. He's pretty much a ghost. People who went to high school with him said that after he left high school, he just deleted all his social media. And then when he was on the dating profiles, he didn't go by his name. He went by the name Hunter. So it kind of seemed like he wanted to remain off the grid, which once again, I don't blame him. If I could delete all my social media, I would. But there's normal reasons for wanting to delete your social media, and then there's nefarious kind of suspicious reasons for why you don't want to be found or want people to know what you're up to. What we do know is that if these reports are true, McGann was inappropriate with young girls, and he was called out and reprimanded for his behavior. And no, he wasn't fired, but yeah, he was kind of forced to resign, right? And then after that, it doesn't seem that he pushed any limits at any of the other schools he worked at. Like there was no really other reports, at least according to the school districts. Once again, though, there could have been reports. There could have been rumors, rumblings, and the school district does not really want to highlight that. They don't want to admit to parents, faculty, staff, the public, the community around them, we hired somebody who put your children in danger. It's like cruise ships and all-inclusive resorts. When crimes happen there or something bad goes on there, the cruise ships are like, let's try to brush this under the rug, make it as unknowing or unknowable as possible, because this will affect tourism, right? The school district doesn't want the people in the community to look at them as, hey, we can't trust you to send our kids to you. Like, we can't trust you. We have to be on the alert because you brought a predator into, a whole building of children. So I'm also wondering, maybe Andrew McGann realized that it was too hard for him to prey on students during school hours. Other teachers are watching, parents care about their kids, the kids are going home and talking. And he's like, man, I can't do this. Like, it's really hard to groom these school kids because they talk to their parents and the parents complain. So to fulfill whatever sick desires he may or may not have had, he just decided to grab a few kids from the woods, a few girls from the woods, right? Maybe he went to that state park thinking I'll find a kid or a few kids, or maybe tempt them away from their parents, take them to do whatever I want, and then maybe dispose of them. Once again, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I can't wrap my head around this. It's very tragic and very sad. And although I'm glad Andrew McGann is in custody and no longer a danger to anyone else, I have to wonder if this could have been prevented. And the thought of Andrew McGann going to Devil's Den State Park in order to find victims, it's not crazy. Look what happened at Delphi. It's usually a crime of opportunity. And we don't know. This guy could have been going to state parks every day as the school year approached, spending his summer just hanging out in state parks with a knife in his bag just in case he needed it, hoping to have that opportunity. But that day he did put black tape on his license plate. Was he doing that every day? I have a feeling that his cell phone information, including GPS, where he'd been, places he'd visited, things like that are going to come out in the following weeks and months leading up to, hopefully it doesn't have to be a trial. Hopefully he will confess, admit to it, save everybody the trouble and the pain, especially those two little girls. But because it's a death penalty case, or it could potentially be a death penalty case, he may not do that. Or he may make a deal to confess to avoid the death penalty. There could be a dozen different options here. But if more information comes out, I will keep you updated on this case as it progresses, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to say about this case in the comment section. Like, is there something I'm missing? Why would a 20-something-year-old man who's a teacher randomly attack two adults at a park that he has no knowledge of, that he doesn't know, no reason to be upset, no reason to be mad at them, unless he was going after their two daughters? What other reason would there be? I can't think of anything. I really can't. So let me know if you have any more information, if you have different theories. Let me know in the comment section. That's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you joining me. This video was a little shorter than normal, but I thought it was important to get out there and talk about and kind of get your take on things. So let me know what you think in the comment section. And don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, subscribe if you haven't already. Halloween's coming up, guys, okay? And I got lots of fun stuff planned for Halloween. You'll want to be subscribed and you'll want to have your notifications turned on. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe. I love you so much, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.
Oh, the levee don't break now. And the bottle's going straight down.